Wallis and Futuna is a French island country in the South Pacific, whose population is 99% Catholic. The reason behind this is all thanks to a loving priest, Father Peter Chanel. He was murdered for doing what he loved, sharing his love for God with others. Born on July 12, 1803 in France, Peter was chosen as a pupil by his parish priest for his unusual intelligence and piety. He went to the local seminary and was ordained a priest in 1827. For his first year of priesthood, he spent a brief time as an assistant priest. He then spent 3 years as parish priest in a small country town where the church was still in disarray, a generation after the Revolution. On Sundays and feast days, the church was almost empty. But with compassion and love and his care, particularly for the sick in the parish, he won the hearts of the locals. His approach was his personal motto, which was to love Mary and bring others to love her. In 1831, he joined the Marist missionary congregation, hoping to work on the foreign missions. Father Peter then served as a professor at the seminary of Belley for 5 years. Then finally, in 1836, he was made the superior of a group of Marist missionaries headed for the Southwest Pacific, destined to found the Catholic Church. The group set out in 1836, accompanied by Bishop Pompallier, who was to become the first bishop of New Zealand. Father Peter was placed on the island of Futuna with a Marist catechist brother, Marinezia. Initially, the mission was difficult. For 3.5 years on Futuna, Father Peter and Brother Nezia struggled with language difficulties, strange customs, and so forth. But the hardest to bear was the lack of success in conversions. In 1839, a cyclone destroyed almost all the houses and plantations on the island. So Father Peter tended to the sick, baptized the dying, and labored faithfully, eventually winning from all the name of the man with the kind heart. But not everyone had praise for him. King Nuliki, who was the king of Futuna, believed Christianity would undermine his authority as high priest and king. He kept control of his people largely through their worship of evil spirits. Nuliki was the only king on Futuna at the time that Father Peter lived there. His son, Matala, lived in a different part of the island, and when Matala converted to Christianity, the king grew furious. The king ordered his favored warrior, Musu Musu, to do whatever was necessary to fix the problem. So the warrior went to Matala and found him and his friends at prayer. The two men fought and the warrior was injured. So the warrior and his men then went to look for Father Peter. Father Peter was home alone that day, as he had injured himself while gardening, so Brother Nezia had to do the visiting on his own. When the warrior approached Father Peter, he asked him to tend to the wound on his body from his fight. As Father Peter turned away and went into the house, the group of men attacked the priest. One of them injured him with a spear, before Musu Musu smashed his head with an axe. When the Bishop of New Zealand heard the news, he and Father Philip sailed to Wallis. Father Philip and Brother Nezia then went ashore on Futuna. Brother Nezia had been able to escape to Wallis a few days after Father Peter's murder. They gathered Father's remains, which were then taken to New Zealand. His remains were kept reverently in New Zealand till 1849, when they were returned to France. In 1889, Father Peter was declared a martyr and beatified. He was then canonized in 1954 by Pope Pius XII. Within a few years of his death, most of the island of Futuna had converted to Catholicism. In fact, Wallis and Futuna has been listed as 99% Catholic by the CIA. The man who murdered Father Peter, Musu Musu, eventually converted to Catholicism. Near his death, he expressed the desire that he be buried outside the shrine so that those who came to revere St. Peter Chanel would walk over his grave to reach it. In 1977, the main reliquary containing the major bones of St. Peter Chanel was returned to Futuna at the request of the country's bishop. They were placed in the church at the site of the martyrdom on the 28th of April in 1977, which is also his feast day that's celebrated as a public holiday. The major relic of the saint's fractured skull was also returned to Futuna in 1985. The fate of the martyred priest, leading to the conversion of many, offers an example and model to Christians of how good prevails when founded on compassion, moral formation, and love. He is recognized as the protomartyr and patron saint of Oceania,